As we move forward in our next session, I'm thrilled to introduce today's speaker, Govind Balakrishna. He's a true visionary in the world of sports and entrepreneurship. Govind is the founder and CEO of All Sports Fit, a leading platform revolutionizing sports and fitness. With a passion for innovation, he has established himself as a serial entrepreneur and mentor at CII, guiding the next generation of business leaders. Recognized for his unremarkable achievements, he was featured in the prestigious 30 Under 30 by Times of India. Please join me in welcoming Govind, where he will talk about grassroots sports in India and abroad and what are the vision and technologies. We welcome you, Govind.
Thanks so much, Ami, for this opportunity and SportsFirst. And it's incredibly exciting to be here amongst other distinguished speakers who's also going to be speaking, otherwise. And truly, I think it's a great day to start and voice what we do and our vision as a company. So what we're really looking forward. So let me give an intro of what All Sports Fit was all about, why we started, and what is the element of programs, services, technology in sports that we would like to offer as a company, and probably to impact lakhs and millions of kids, India and globally, taking the vision of 2036 as an initiative. So it all began as a vision when COVID was one of the reasons I started this, and what we saw was there was no large initiatives driven for fitness and sports, customized and designed for children, right? And that's where we came. Yes, there were few inspirational companies that we took sources of information or vision from or aspiration from, and then we did start All Sports Fit, and it is very key and critical for children to have a sport discipline as a whole initiative, along with the ecosystem of the platform, a structured curriculum, and making sports compulsive, right? And that's where we started addressing back in 2022 when we began our journey. And it all started establishing from schools and beyond schools, right? So having said that, the core areas we are trying to solve is 2 to 3 areas. One is how do you bring discipline to sports and make it compulsive? The second is how do we identify talent scouting, right? And bring in more talent from any parts of India or globally, right? As we scale as a company. The third initiative is technology, right? So these are the 3 emphasis factors that we really focus on as a company, All Sports Fit. And what also we are trying to address is start working with schools on a large scale, right? And it could be with the city we are present in strongly, which is Bangalore, or pan-India presence that we are going to have. We are operating around 30, 40 locations, and we'll be operating on 100 plus, maybe even much more, right? So one is the physical activity, the actual sporting programs that we design through disciplined curriculum, which is completely made indigenous based on the infrastructure availability, based on the space, the utilization of spaces that we have in the schools. And the other aspect is also taking up the general wellness of kids by making sports and physical education compulsory. So when we just go back to the area of technology, what we also want to drive is compulsive IoT and sensor-based tech, along with profiling of kids, right? So that's another transition we're aggressively working on a large scale. So we believe data can play a huge role in terms of accuracy, and something visually you can't see with your eyes as a coach, as a trainer, and also it's like a personal milestone that an individual student can see as he or she perceives through the journey of Grassroots. So these are some of the areas we are aggressively working. And another interesting thing is we are open for collaborations, which is very much key important here is We want to bring introduction of golf to India at a very early age. Why golf is not a retirement game, right? It should be brought to young kids. Why not? You can have golf championships, like a mini golf championships for children. Why not, right? And we want to aggressively bring baseball, right? I think we are all diehard fans of cricket in India. We have a huge follow base and everything. What so Another thing is making basketball even more aggressively uh, beneficial through ecosystems like NBA, right? So in terms of, it could be supporting ecosystems for scholarships, or bringing new scout and talent in these multidisciplinary areas which has never been explored before or very little explored. As we understand, there are 2 to 3 sports that have taken higher percentage of attention, right? We all know, when we were kids in India, we played 2 to 3 sports which is extensively played: cricket, football, basketball, or whatever is the games. I think we have Pro Kabaddi League and pickleball picking up recently, right, as an attention, and I think it's going to be the next curve of growth for pickleball. So why we believe in the transition of bringing global sports and making it a normal mandate in India is, when you have a unique talent, there's opportunity there, right? So for example, the scenario is cricket, basketball, football have so many people getting into it, but you have very little people coming to golf, or it could baseball, or niche sports. So that is another area of how we envision our company. And again, going back to the technology element, we want to utilize the tools what they have been extensively using in the global geographies and markets, where a lot of reliance is on data, a lot of reliance is on technology-based assessments, and a lot of data is looking at how do we look at competitive landscape for individual sports, or individual profiling, or it could be tournament assessment, team strategy. So a lot of emphasis we want to use through sensor-based tech. And I think it requires a lot of, there is no one-stop shop. You can't have a particular technology tool for all the sports. I think it has to be customized, devised as per the platform, as per the infrastructure, as per the learning experience. I think companies have done depth of these training platforms where tools are already being utilized, technology already been implemented, but not at a very large scale. So we want to do this at a large scale. That's our kind of an opportunity we're looking at, and we are seeking as a company. So having said that, the main collaboratives helps us in the areas of working with such kind of platforms, ecosystems, and bring them to Indian schools, kids in India, students in India who play for the love of sport. And we have already done some collaborations, which I may not be able to name today, but soon in the future we'll be able to voice. We are already on track to impact around 100,000 kids as well in the last 3 years of journey. I think we'll multiply them as we scale, which has given us a great learning curve. Initial days were difficult to have such initiatives. Making sports compulsive in India is a huge challenge. Physical education, because a lot of emphasis was there on academics. I think now it's changing. Everything is going to be balanced. We have had inspirations from great athletes winning medals, and students wants to have such aspirations and inspirations from athletes. So I think the future looks very promising in terms of how nurturing is very much required in grassroots. And that's where we're super excited to collaborate with some of the big names in the market. And another thing that we want to learn is learn from the global geographies of the best practices. Europe is well known for football. America is known for baseball, basketball, and many. So we want to bring those learning experiences into grassroots, because we should not be teaching sports based on what the coach knows. We should be teaching sports and should be helping kids at the grassroots what the global sporting ecosystem requirements are. That helps you compete at a global level. And that spirit of competitiveness should begin from right early age. And that's where you kind of imbibe, train, nurture to take them to the next level. And that's what also All Sports Fit stands for. So we say we want to create champions and athletes. That's our motto of what All Sports Fit stands for. Having said that, what we also believe is there are so many things, there are so many gaps that has to be fulfilled in terms of the structure. And we are trying to address that as we learn year on year. One of the challenges that we saw in the vision of All Sports Fit in the last 3 years, it's not been too long, is we saw there is an infrastructure issue, right? When I say infrastructure, it's a sporting infrastructure that may not support all kinds of sports you want to play, right? Because to play a particular sport, you require that environment, that discipline, that kind of a natural transition for you to play, so that it challenges you to play at any capacity tomorrow. So what is that is another challenging point that we are trying to address through Grassroots. We are tying up with schools that gives opportunities for other students, kids to come to those schools that have infrastructure to play. At the end of the day, we are not differentiating ourselves with private schools, public schools, government schools, tribal schools, rural schools. For us, everyone is the same. Talent can come from any part of India, any part of the world. And our vision is how many medals can we generate through our training programs when they reach the Olympics. That's the long-term vision of 2036 that we have. And what is really happening in terms of what we can produce and promote is the steps we have taken.
Correct. So, I have a few questions regarding this only. As you are into this field, how do you see, the other countries where the grassroots systems are strong, the structure wise, the sports program, and what can India as a country learn from that?
So, like I said earlier, it's a good question. There are best practices that has to be looked through, right? So, when we have programs designed for cater to 3 to 5, 6 to 10, 12 grade, right? So, it is very well structured, and all these learnings are coming from the well-established ecosystems abroad. But you can't blindly follow what the best practices are. You got to understand your environment, your scenarios, the mindset here, and the opportunities of the infrastructure available here. So you got to go completely indigenous and get into more customization, right? So another thing is sometimes you also help with whatever, you can only do so much with what you have and the available space in the sporting. And sporting is a long-term journey. It's not something that you can do for 6 months, 1 year, and say, I'll drive athletes. I cannot do that, and no one can do that. So what we've been learning and carefully observing is how structured and disciplined are the programs designed for the grades that I just mentioned in 3 stages. First is the focus on the locomotive skills that gives you the basic foundation for you to learn or get to an introduction of a sport. So it could be dealing with your, grip assessment, your locomotive skills, your movements, and all that. Those are the basic foundations that you need, under 5. And once you're moving to 6 years in the kids' journey, or the children's journey, you start getting into learning of a new sport. It's an introduction. So what basic foundation you do here is important for you to get there. And then the child's interest starts moving towards I want to play basketball. I'm influenced with a particular athlete. It may be too early to understand, but it is through the peer learning experience the children get totally influenced, and only when they play is when they learn, right? So that's another way to look at it. Only when you play is when you learn, right? That's the way to look at it. And that's the thing that we also do. So I think curriculums abroad are already well structured. They've been, operating since maybe 2 decades, 3 decades or more. They have a physical education.
Okay.
Physical education, yeah. Physical
Go
education
ahead.
is one of the most important assessments that becomes one of the important part and parcel of their academics. So that is what also has happened in India with new education policy. Uh, Physical education and sports made compulsory, and it's only that transition that has to happen by making sports equally as important as academics. So going back to your question, using the best practices, indigenization is key, and execution. Right, these are the three things that we look at.
Okay. So, like, what policy level changes are needed, for specific grassroots sports to become more accessible and more structured from the Indian context?
Yeah. Um, so I think it's also the education boards and education advisories who have to voice the importance of sports. How is it important for the general wellness of kids by making sports compulsive, not alternative? And even the government intervention is very key and necessary. We have definitely government bodies that has come out with initiatives, but we need it at a large scale as a mandate, and that's where you can produce large amount of athletes. So we all know for a fact that where we stand at the medals tally. If you look at the population of India, with the younger audience or the youth sports being one of the largest numbers. So there is an opportunity where we need to make use of that numbers as a demography, right? So when we have such advantages, I think the government intervention, the education policymakers, uh, you know, the the think tankers have to ensure that they should frame a mandate policy so that it helps in the overall development and athlete management right from grounds up. Right? So it makes a lot of difference there. Yeah.
Okay, so what is the role these days specifically of social media and the digital content play in promoting grassroots sports or grassroots athletes? Like, how is that shaping up?
So um, many of the times, social media, yes, and that's where the awareness programs have to be driven. Schools definitely have to have, of course, definitely branded schools and growing schools have their own social medias and social platforms where they could have uh, promoted programs of such initiatives that will only influence and excite the opportunity for kids to say. Or probably, I think we also have platforms where there's live stream today, right? For example, when you play cricket, there's a live stream where the parents can watch. There is, your relatives can watch, your friends can watch you playing live. So that's a new exciting experience. There are a few companies that are already doing it, where I think the visibility and the talent identification can also play a huge role through social media, right? So sometimes when, let's say, you put it on a nationwide network like a geo platform or anything like a fan code, there are so many platforms like those. So there are millions of people watching you, right? So that has to be done from even early stage or high school level, or whenever he's trying to transit from a learning curve to a pro. So I think it's important to create that visibility using these platforms. And you never know, there might be an Indian head coach. Uh, if the luck is good, he's watching you and you're playing really well. He's observing you. So, and then probably some kind of nurturing is required for him to change some skills. I'm just giving an example of cricket because we all understand cricket as a language, and then he might be identified at a very early age. And so there should be no opportunity of lost talent identification. That should never happen. And we should use powerful platforms like social media, live stream platforms, and that basically helps visibility of talent identification and also a motivation for the kid that says, I need to perform and a lot of people are watching me. So let me give the best at it, him or her, right? So yeah.
Okay. Like, what are a few cost-effective ways to provide sports training to the underprivileged kids, or you were talking about urban population or population from the villages? There are sport athletes, coming up from there also. So how can we do that?
So I think there are two interventions. One is the private companies like us, all sports fit. Then there's government, and then there is CSR. There are uh, sponsorships. There are so many ecosystems like this that play a huge role, because um, the other challenge is you can definitely deploy such solutions and programs and services and tech in the urban ecosystem, which is quite accessible, deployable, and also affordable, right? But when it comes to rural parts of India, definitely there is a challenge. But there's also solutions and platforms that you can overcome the challenge. Because for a fact, when you look at the profile of Indian athletes, they're majorly from the rural backgrounds who have won, at least in the athletes side, right? They're not from the major cities. So definitely there's a calling that says there is a natural transition of motivation, because they would have grown from where they are as a kid to a certain level of a pro by having very little resources until they get access to going to academies and training with top coaches. So there's a different set of challenges they would have foreseen. And so what is really telling us here is there is an intrinsic motivation and drive that they have to achieve. So we cannot neglect the parts of rural or the background, the sporting ecosystem that is not accessible, right? So where we want to do is we want to collaborate, private companies, government agencies, government initiatives, policymakers, like I said, with sponsorships and CSRs, like the multinational companies. They all play a huge role, right? So through that collaboration is where you can start solving a larger problem like this. Okay.
There are a lot of digital platforms or apps in the sports segment. So how can the schools inculcate that and, have a learning curve and get, adopt it and pass it forward to the students? Like, how is that segment shaping up?
I think there are apps that are trying to address, but like I said, it's very academy specific or high performance training specific, not on a large scale, right? So I think we need to look at a lighter version of easy accessibility, easy understanding, not too many layers of barriers in the app driven, data driven um, application softwares. So, so we are also ensuring that we want to start digitizing, and with 75 100,000 kids that's coming up. So that gives us the learning curve of where we are. So yes, it is challenging to get into schools to address and get the data, because there is sensitivity, but because we are already a part of schools, it gives us some kind of an advantage to talk about the merit of the accessibility that we give them, and also work with their existing platforms already, right? They would have already had their own systems that they would be operating. So it's all collaborative, um, that helps in the conclusive support of data.
Okay. And how is technology or the people in the sports domain working with the coaches or the mentors, and like how are they adaptable from the Indian context?
So it's still in the learning curve. It's fully, like I said, there are few academies and high performance training centers that are using these aggressively, and they could be just handful, like 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, users, even less. I think, I'm not sure. So technology has to be made uh, necessary, I feel it's like, especially in the sporting ecosystem, because you can't still carry out your entire portfolio of sporting championship success with certificates, and right it or there should be a platform that tells you how I was earlier, how I've improved now. And so there are so many things to look at when you say a technology platform, and it's an ocean of activities that you need to track and trace and evaluate. So that's where a lot of these interventions, like we said, right? So profiling is required, and so it's all about what are the should haves and must haves in the app that gives a basic understanding of the sporting. We call it sporting life cycle management, or the sporting journey management. So maybe those are some of the areas to be looked at.
Okay. Any last few advice what you would like to share with the audience?
Yeah, so I think it was super exciting to be here, and thanks to the team and for this opportunity to voice about all sports fit. Um, like I said, I've been the founder CEO of the company, and it was all through a motivation of creating and impacting millions of kids with the Vision 2036. Uh, I think it's important to start sports grounds up uh, and start identifying which sport is right for what students, and probably help them in the learning curve. Um, Make sure making sports as one of the compulsive programs, not as an alternative program, as a part of your lifestyle. It's like breathing. Play sports like breathing, like your general wellness. And I think it's important to have technology as a part of your scouting activity and also assessment activity as a part of the initiative. And so we are looking for global collaborations. It could be the NBA's baseball or the golf, ecosystem of the world, the football ecosystem of the world, any sport that we want to bring to India and want to start introducing to the kids. And yeah, that's what it is.
Thank you, Govind, for this informative session and sharing your insights with us. Your expertise and valuable perspective on this truly enhanced and understanding inspired all of us. We appreciate you taking your time to share your knowledge. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.